Well, Barrington, we have something very special in common. My grandfather set the world record for going around the globe in 1947 to beat out Howard Hughes. His plane was called the Bombshell, and he did borrow World War II parts to make it, but he doesn't compare to you, and he paid somebody to do it. He also had a sponsor from what was then called the Boston Museum of Science and Engineering. Long story short, flying is a passion of ours as well, and I'm close to, I don't know if you know Robin Petgrave out in Los Angeles, a dear friend, an incredible man who trains up young men in Compton to become technicians and pilots. So anyway, it's a pleasure to meet you. Let's talk. I want to also start my remarks today with a couple of other kind of side remarks. I had to make notes while I was sitting there. And I'll start by saying that I want the CSOs to stand, please. Get on your feet, ladies, gentlemen. Where are you? One of Broadcom's proudest new beneficiaries are the CSO program, which is spearheaded by our Cheryl Braun in our office. And they were kind enough to let me join them for dinner last night. And I said something to them, which is kind of my new mantra. There are two important days in your life. The first is the day you're born, and the second is the day you know why. This moved me in a way when I heard it, because I thought there are moments, whether it's a teacher who resets your clock about what you're going to do and the time you have to do it in, or whether over time you go to wonderful science initiatives and programs like the Regeneron ISIF that Dacia did to find her passion in science and advocacy. These moments are very special, and I think in reflecting on what Barrington was saying, having kids understand why they're here really is only going to come about if they have that aha moment, and it isn't necessarily while they're sitting there frozen in a seat. And it is absolutely true and an important insight that COVID really changed our kids as much, and they are driving us to new heights in education. Other factors did too, and for Broadcom, and I think many of you know that we no longer are the national and international sponsors of the Broadcom Masters. We made that decision for a very compelling reason. We love science fairs and we continue to support them. We support 50 around the United States that we've handpicked for a reason, and I'll explain that in a moment. But the inflection point for us was the death of George Floyd. Those of us who were sitting home during COVID and experienced the horror of that moment realized that our nation is deeply flawed in ways that we all saw up close and personal. It was no longer something we could say was somewhere else, someone else. And I went to Henry Samueli, who, as you know, is a founder of Broadcom and a great man, great philanthropist in his own right, and said, we in the foundation would like to make a turn in the road. We want to really go to ground with young people and really try to make a difference in a way that we can't do if we're only celebrating the best of the best. What we really want to do is lift everyone else into the world of STEM. So the presentation that now I guess this is a clicker, and what do I do here? Just push a button? The green one? Is it that simple? Good. That's good. So what we decided to do, and this was a big turn in the road. It's been a heavy lift for me and a very small staff. Maria Ronsky, Cheryl Braun, who are here, and 3 other people make up our little crew. We decided that we were going to turn our attention to coding, take back resources that we were applying in the direction of national and international science fair sponsorship to start working closer to the field. I love this quote from Tim Tim Cook, and I think it's important to take it into account when we think of the future, AI, we think of other important changes that are coming in technology, which I'm going to talk about. He basically said, if I'm a French student and I were 10 years old, I'd be taking coding instead of English. It is the universal language of the future. And I really believe in my gut that our ability to create equity and access depends on us having every child understand computational thinking and basics of coding. Why? Because if you don't understand how things work, you are a consumer, not a creator. You are not a creative thinker. In my opinion, you may not even be a very discerning voter. I think to keep a strong middle class, a strong and vibrant society, we need to look at coding not as a skill, but a language that everyone should speak if they want to talk to each other. We all know about Babel. We are not going to be the Tower of Babel. We need to make sure our kids can speak the universal language that will allow them to raise in society. So, with that in mind, we've changed our mission, and we, in addition to ensuring that everyone is digitally literate, we plan to promote code clubs, and I'll explain why. We believe that code clubs are great in schools, but the after-school space gives you project-based learning time, which I'm going to explain in our vision for code clubs. And for those of you that still haven't decided what you're going to do today, come and hear Bervin Harris and Bartel Welch talk about their unique code clubs in the Bronx and in Detroit to get a sense of the range of opportunities you have to create a model that works for you, both in and outside the classroom. So I want to have a little disclaimer here. I don't know about you, but digital literacy is one of those words where you go, what the heck is digital literacy and why do I care? I'm digitally literate. I can use my smartphone. No, you're not digitally literate. What you are is somebody who can read on glass instead of paper. It's really important to think about that when people tell you how great it is that tablets are in school. If they're just replacing silicone with tree-based materials, that is not a big change, and that is not digital literacy. The first phase is the off and online reading. Most of us can do that. Most of our kids, even kids in under-resourced communities can do that. But until you can take the next steps, you are really not digitally literate. The next step is being able to wander through Wikipedia like I did to look at you real quick and make sure when my grandfather flew that plane, what year was that, and go to Wiki. By the way, your Wiki needs more information. I'm going to put it on there. Your teacher isn't there. Get busy, man. Okay, so finding and consuming is the next level that kids and people use their smartphones for, their computers for. Then you start creating content to research and interact. But most of that's done, excuse me, most of that's done with apps these days. It's not necessarily done with you really taking a deep dive. Coding is where the magic happens. Now you see this happy little girl there. You can see her, that's my granddaughter, Kaya. And Kaya started coding when she was in 7th grade at UCI in the lab that we set up with Greg Washington for the Raspberry Pi, early Raspberry Pis. She's there with her little Pi, learning to tweak the Pi and code, to learn a little electronics there. The next picture is her actually as a intern there this year, and she's going off to college to become an engineer. She's a classic case. If you can't see it, you can't be it. She got exposed to this stuff at a young age at a summer program at UCI, and now she's on her way. All right, so I've kind of explained that coding or digital literacy isn't just looking at your smartphone. And this slide gives you, and these are, by the way, these are posted if you ever want to take a harder look at this stuff. I want to go through it because I don't have much time. Digital skills are effective use of hardware. Intermediate skills are starting to be able to evaluate technology and create things. And advanced digital skills are where you get into ICT, AI. You get into the complicated stuff that people like me couldn't imagine thinking about. But you go through these basic skills to ultimately get to where you want to be, whether it's a technician or whether it is somebody who's working for Dr. Lopez at the Department of Defense. So coding is also hot. Okay, I've given you some rationales about why I think it's important, and sociologically, politically, educationally, but this is what it really comes down to: jobs. And one of the things that we changed at our Broadcom Foundation platform is that we're about workforce development. We've just gone to that last point on the spectrum. Where are we going, and why are we going there, rather than taking it step by step, and then trying to figure out, could we take a little bite out of where we're going? I mean, relatively speaking, Broadcom is a big name with a small budget. Those of you who know me know that. And we wanted to find our place in this because coding is hot. The Chips and Science Act of 2019, date myself, oh my God. 2022 is ground moving. You couple that with the Infrastructure Act of 22, which will bring national broadband, hopefully to every home and school in our nation. And the STEM ecosystem has played a critical role in making sure that the grants that are coming down from the National Science Foundation are finding a home, not only with CHIPS, but with the Infrastructure Act, so that there is equity in the distribution of the important broadband resources that are being applied throughout our country and tribal communities. So the CHIPS Act is bringing not only the technology back to places like Arizona. The picture you see here is a picture of the big fab, one of several fab facilities that is being built in Arizona at this time in collaboration with the Taiwanese, who really had the market on fab development for years. And those fabs, there's in Ohio, they're Pennsylvania, they're going to be everywhere. Those fab facilities not only generate jobs there, they're going to generate jobs all around them, all the service providers, all of the manufacturing companies that are going to make use of those chips in the domestication of our workforce and our consumer products, once again, the way it was after World War II. So the vast explosion of opportunity for people who are digitally literate, and by that I'm referring to it the way Henry Samueli does, basic coding, basic coding. And if you come to our workshop, we'll show you basic computational thinking and basic coding. We're not trying to get every kid to the top of the heap. We're trying to get every kid in the game. And that's a very different thing. And everyone can code. I can code. I took the Raspberry Pi summer course, and I have a little certificate. It was one of the most important days of my life, I should say. I was impressed with myself. But the point is, if you start coding when you're a little kid, it's a game. Just like they play with their games on their phones, coding is a game. It's so simple for them. They're already halfway there because they can maneuver computers so seamlessly. So it's very important as educators that we stop thinking of coding as a big deal. Coding is just a little game of breaking down things to the integral parts, moving them back in the direction you want them to go, and doing something with them. This is not rocket science. It's just the beginning of rocket science, but it's not rocket science. Okay. And of course, it gives you a hiring edge. So let's take a look at a few things. This is another piece that I think people should be aware of. John Doerr, who is one of the great entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley. Maybe we should call it former Silicon Valley. What do you think? Former Silicon Valley. And he gave Stanford over $1 billion specifically to create a new school of sustainability. Now think about it. Climate and sustainability, what do they have to do with computation? Everything. He says it will be the new computer science. Climate and sustainability. Saving the world. Good idea. Let's do it with the engineers and scientists getting together. So just to give you an idea of how important computers are, this is a picture on the red picture there, red automobile. That is a picture that we use at the Broadcom Corporation of the technologies. This is just a simple statement of it. The technologies that Broadcom chips serve in your automobile. You know we're in all your smartphones too. We're the secret sauce in everything. We didn't used to be able to say that when Steve Jobs was alive because he didn't want anybody to know that there was anything inside that pretty little glass box that he created that wasn't his. But Qualcomm and Broadcom knew better, as did a few other wonderful companies. But we were only allowed to say our friends in Cupertino for many, many years until after he passed away, Financial Times did the great reveal. Anyway, we're in automotive, and if you look at the chart to the left, you will see that in 1950, there wasn't even 1% of your car that was electrical. I mean, look at the difference in such a short period of time of how dependent we are on chips and the technology of chips and the need for computational thinking and coding for jobs in the auto industry. So let's take a look briefly at what this means in the workforce development. It creates a hiring edge like none other, and getting there is going to be tricky. I wrote an article for GN it's a little preface to the wonderful pamphlet that STEM Ecosystem put out for getting all the ecosystems engaged in applying for the National Science Foundation grants. And I commented, I actually took the article down a couple of notches because I had spent a lot of time in China for Broadcom Foundation, going around and looking at universities and plants, automotive plants out in Xi'an, you'd think in the middle of nowhere, oh, they're those nice Xi'an warriors out there. No, they're automotive plants out there. And it was quite amazing. And we saw universities being built. This was about 7 or 8 years ago. Universities being built in 1 year to house 100,000 students. I'm saying 1 year, a full university campus, 100,000 students. Now, we all know how far behind we are in the curve, and I am here to set your hair on fire. To find the workforce to fill these wonderful jobs is our great challenge. And the reason we're taking this little niche, this after-school space, and saying, let's make that coding space, and supporting any organization that is developing coding. We're working closely with the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which I'll show you in a minute, is because we believe we can fill these jobs, but only in America. Why? Because we know our kids are behind. We know our inner city kids are way behind. We know our tribal kids are behind. We know our rural kids are behind. How are we going to catch up? Number one, we're going to get that broadband in there. Number two, this organization, which has been doing it from the ground up for the last 5 big years where it's really counted, is robust enough to make sure that we turn the tide and do what we did in World War II, create a national emergency to have every single kid digitally literate and ready for the CHIPS opportunities that await them. Look at these jobs. You can start working in the automotive industry at a price point not quite as high, perhaps, as becoming a pilot, but it's not a bad place to start. And these jobs are readily available in and around the CHIPS firmament that is going to be part of the next 5 years. We have a window, we need to grab it, and I think everything that Barrington said is absolutely right on how we can seize it. All right, so that diverse workforce, that middle class, that new middle class is ours to create, and we will. Beyond our young people, and code clubs in middle school, which is kind of our sweet spot. By the way, I think code clubs should start as early as preschool, playing around with this stuff, and I think it's happening. I understand from Jan that the state of Texas, of all places, is now requiring coding at K through 6, right? And that's pretty phenomenal, but I think that's going to happen everywhere. But we need to get there faster, right? If we're going to catch this wave, if we're going to stay viable, we need to catch this wave. We need to go to not only the young people, but the ready resources, untrained, untapped talent that exists. And that is the immigrant population, the under-resourced population who are adults, young adults, adults that need to be retrained, and use our community colleges. We think, and I think this is something that I hope to be part of the conversation as we go forward, we think that community colleges are in the best position to very rapidly give people the training they need in basic digital literacy, just to get people going. People can go from community colleges on to universities and get sophisticated on that continuum I showed you, or it can get them in the game at an automotive plant nearby. All right, so it's an affordable education for low-income students, minorities, first generation, adult learners. It is a place that can be quickly retooled with resources that I believe will come down. And we all need to encourage our local community colleges and give them our assistance in making sure that they make good use of the opportunities to retool and train technologist workforce. This is a term we need to embrace. Technologists, scientists, engineers, innovators, mathematicians, technologists, people that can combine a variety of practical skills, digital literacy, to ultimately achieve very important goals. All right, so pay attention to those National Science Foundation dollars and help Jan and the ecosystem leadership get the drumbeat going. Very important. And I would also add here, I got rid of some slides because my time is limited, and so just wanted to say apprenticeships are important. Encourage your local companies to get in the game because it's their workforce you're developing. I want to show you this map. This is the way we're going about our affairs at Broadcom. We're overlaying the ecosystem, where the code clubs are, and where we're doing science fair. This is one layer, or our layer, if you will, of interface. I think it's really important that all of us begin to think overhead about the interface of our organizations so we can really build up muscle mass fast. All right, I'm going to quickly touch on our Coding with Commitment program. If you come to our session, you will hear more about it, and I'm always happy to take calls on this. We believe you have to meet kids where they are. This goes to Barrington's point about making things relevant, making them right, and having kids see themselves and their future. How you do that is go where they are. What concerns them? So with our program, what we do is combine project-based learning, STEM, coding, to create the active citizenship by using the 17 Sustainable Goals of the United Nations and saying to kids, hey, you're concerned about trash in your yard? Well, I'm going to skip ahead on my slides just because we don't have much time here. And you don't have the ability to do anything about it? Yes, you do. Let's do some coding and come up with some ideas on how to monitor the trash in the yard. Okay, now how do I do this? Just push it, guys? All right. These are a couple of kids that have just learned to code in the last year with issues that mattered to them.
And I'm 11 years old, and I'm in the robotics room of Renaissance Youth Center, and I will be telling you about the blind sick. This is an upgraded version of a regular blind sick, because a regular one just taps. This one taps if something get in it way, it beeps. So I choose to make this project because it could help people in the visually impaired community because it keeps them safe and out of danger. We use it Arduino IDE to code the Arduino to beep when the sensor is activated. I would do differently, make it less heavy, because you don't want to make your arms hurt while holding it. Second thing I would do differently was add this army rail, because you could just roll it instead of just tapping the ground.
Ever had this problem before?
I wish I had one of my hands free.
Check out these smart glasses. Hello guys, my name is Johan and I'm from the robotics group in Renaissance Youth Center, and these are smart glasses. Smart glasses is an upgrade to our previous invention, which is the blind stick, and it's hands-free. Our smart glasses use an Arduino Mega, which is connected to our ultrasonic sensor, so if it's too close to a wall or an object, it will start beeping. I chose to make this project to help blind people in use because the blind stick that we made right here might be too heavy for them, so this makes it hands-free. A thing I would do differently is probably make it more comfortable for people, because this is pretty uncomfortable for the heaviness on this side. And we probably need to fix our ultrasonic sensor placement because it's going down, so it might mess up the readings.
These glasses are so much better.
Mervyn Harris, who's the founder of Renaissance Youth Center, will be speaking today at our session. As I said, Bartel Welch from Code 313. You really should come hear them. If you have a chance to turn any kid, any parent, anybody, into watching the upcoming coolest projects, these kids' projects and others are showcased there. Anyone can join. It's non-competitive. It's free. Right now, they've just closed the registration for this year, but I urge you to take advantage of an incredible opportunity to see kids like this doing what they do. And mind you, those kids had only been participating in a code club for 2 years. So that's impressive, huh? Anyway, we have free resources. You're welcome to my deck, which can give you a little more in-depth. I got a little off track because I was so excited about Barrington's talk. But I'm delighted that we've been able to share with you the direction we're taking, and I hope it's something that if you see a need to collaborate or want to help us find a code club in your community that'll be interested in working with us and the Raspberry Pi Foundation on free online resources that require only their laptop or tablet, then by all means get in touch with us. Thanks for your time.